A young peasant girl, barely 17, stood before the Dauphin of France. She claimed God had spoken to her, commanding her to save her country. This was no fairy tale. This was the beginning of a legend that would change the course of a war. Her name was Joan of Arc. What made a simple farm girl believe she could lead an army and crown a king? The peasant girl who heard voices. In the small village of Domremy, nestled in the rolling hills of northeastern France, lived a young girl named Joan. She wasn't born into nobility or wealth. Her family were simple farmers, her days filled with chores like spinning wool and tending to the animals. Life was ordinary, quiet, and far from the grand stage of war and kings. But for Joan, things were about to change in a way no one could have predicted. One day, when she was around 13 years old, she was in her father's garden. It was a bright, sunny afternoon. Suddenly, she heard a voice. It wasn't a voice from a person nearby. This voice was different, powerful, and seemed to come from above. It spoke to her, telling her she was chosen for a special mission. At first, Joan was startled, perhaps even a little afraid. She didn't understand who or what was speaking. But the voices continued to appear, not just one, but several. They identified themselves as Saint Michael, Saint Catherine, and Saint Margaret. These heavenly messengers brought her a message of great importance. France was in deep trouble, and she, a humble peasant girl, was destined to help save it. They told her she must go to the Dauphin, the uncrowned Prince of France, and help him reclaim his throne from the English invaders. The voices were persistent and clear. They instructed her on what she needed to do, guiding her steps. It was an enormous burden for a young girl, a call to action that defied all logic and societal norms. How could a simple farm girl possibly lead armies and change the course of a war? Yet, the divine conviction within her grew stronger with each message. She knew she couldn't ignore this sacred calling. What would you do if you heard voices telling you to change the world? The Rise of the Warrior Maid. A young peasant girl from a small village in France, Joan, began to hear voices. These weren't just any voices. They were the voices of saints, she believed, telling her she had a divine mission. France was in deep trouble, locked in a long war with England, and the French king was weak. The voices urged Joan to go to the Dauphin, Charles, and help him reclaim his throne. It seemed impossible for a simple farm girl to do such a thing. Yet, Joan was determined. She convinced a local commander to escort her to Chinon, where the Dauphin held court. Dressed in men's clothes, a bold move for any woman at the time, she faced skepticism and tests from Charles and his advisors. They tried to trick her, even hiding the Dauphin among his courtiers, but Joan, guided by her voices, recognized him immediately. This display of uncanny insight impressed many and began to shift opinions. Soon, Joan was given a suit of armor and a banner, and she led French troops to the besieged city of Orleans. This was a turning point. The soldiers, inspired by her unwavering faith and courage, fought with renewed vigor. Her presence on the battlefield, a young woman leading hardened warriors, was extraordinary. Within days, the English siege was broken, a victory that seemed miraculous and revitalized French morale. Her success didn't stop at Orleans. She continued to lead campaigns, encouraging the demoralized French army and pushing the English back. The people saw her as a savior, a sign that God was on France's side. This warrior maid, who once tended sheep, was now a symbol of hope and a formidable military leader. What do you think was the biggest factor in Joan's early success? The siege of Orleans and beyond. The English had Orleans surrounded. For months, the city held on, a beacon of French hope, but supplies were dwindling. The English seemed unstoppable, their longbows raining arrows and their siege engines pounding the walls. It felt like the end of the line for France. Then, a young woman appeared. Joan, a peasant girl, claimed divine guidance, a mission to save France. She arrived at the Dauphin's court, her conviction unwavering, her words piercing through doubt. She was granted a small army, a chance to prove her faith. Joan rode to Orleans, her banner flying, her presence igniting a fire in the hearts of the weary French soldiers. The siege had lasted for months, a grim stalemate. But with Joan leading the charge, things changed. She wasn't just a figurehead, she was a warrior. She inspired the troops, her bravery infectious. They stormed the English fortifications, pushing them back with a ferocity they hadn't shown before. The English, accustomed to easy victories, were stunned. Within days, the impossible happened. The English grip on Orleans loosened, then broke entirely. The siege was lifted, a victory that sent shockwaves across France and England. This wasn't just a military triumph, it was a miracle. Joan of Arc, the Maid of Orleans, had turned the tide. Her success didn't stop there. She continued to lead French forces, clearing the path for the Dauphin's coronation at Reims, a crucial step in restoring French sovereignty. Her legend grew with each battle, each act of courage. But the path of war is treacherous. Joan was eventually captured by Burgundian allies of the English. Her trial was a sham, orchestrated to discredit her and her divine mission. Accused of heresy and witchcraft, she faced immense pressure. Despite her resilience, she was condemned. Yet, even in her final moments, her spirit remained unbroken. Her impact on the 100 Years' War was profound, shifting the momentum and inspiring a nation. How did her unwavering faith, even in the face of such injustice, continue to inspire people centuries later? Trial and martyrdom. The accusations began. Joan, the young woman who had led armies, found herself facing a panel of learned men, church officials who questioned her every word. They twisted her visions, her voices from God, into something sinister, something of the devil. Her simple faith was put on trial, her courage tested not on the battlefield, but in a cold, stone room filled with suspicion. They demanded she deny her divine mission, to admit she had been a fraud. Imagine the pressure, the relentless questioning, day after day. They wanted her to say she had lied about hearing saints, about being sent by God to save France. It was a battle of wills, a fight for her very soul. Finally, they declared her a heretic. Forced to sign a document she likely didn't fully understand, she recanted her visions. But the relief was short-lived. Soon after, she put on men's clothing again, a practical choice for a prisoner, and for this, they condemned her again. This lapse, this return to her accustomed dress, sealed her fate. On a bright May morning, in the marketplace of Rouen, Joan of Arc met her end. A pyre was built, and she was tied to the stake. Her ashes were scattered in the Seine River, an attempt to erase her memory, to silence the inspiration she had become. Yet, her story did not end there. What do you think made her such an enduring symbol of courage? She heard voices, believed in a divine mission, and led armies. Joan of Arc, a simple farm girl, changed the course of a war. Her courage inspired a nation, and her story echoes through centuries. But what happened to the prophecy of her return? And what does her legend mean for us today?